A patient in an Arizona Walgreens clinic opens an envelope. The printed lab result indicates a potassium level so catastrophically high that the human heart would have already stopped beating. By all medical logic, the person holding that piece of paper should be a corpse. Yet the patient is breathing. The pulse is steady. The error does not exist within the human body. The error was manufactured inside a matte black box, sitting thousands of miles away in Palo Alto. A machine valued by the sharpest minds in American capitalism at $9 billion. This is not a clerical mistake. This is the first microscopic fracture in the most elaborate psychological manipulation in the history of Silicon Valley. You are watching Clarity Uncovered. Subscribe to understand how the system breaks.
The device is called the Edison. It is roughly the size of a desktop printer. The promise is a medical revolution. 1 or 2 drops of capillary blood drawn from a fingertip, collected in a vial exactly 1.29 centimeters tall, called a nanotainer. The company claims this microscopic sample can run over 200 distinct immunoassay and hematology tests. The proposition defies the fundamental laws of fluid dynamics and cellular biology. Blood drawn from a fingertip is fundamentally different from venous blood. Squeezing the tissue forces interstitial fluid from the surrounding cells into the blood sample. The physical act of extracting it often ruptures the red blood cells, a phenomenon known as hemolysis. The sample is instantly compromised before it even touches the machine. Yet Silicon Valley refuses to look at the physics. They look at the packaging. A 19-year-old Stanford dropout named Elizabeth Holmes lowers her vocal pitch by 2 octaves. She wears a black turtleneck identical to the one worn by Steve Jobs. She speaks of democratizing healthcare. She never speaks of peer-reviewed data. Not a single independent medical journal has validated the Edison technology. The board of directors does not include a single medical pathology expert. It includes former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. It includes former Secretary of Defense General James Mattis. It includes former Secretary of State George Shultz. These are men trained to navigate global thermonuclear geopolitics. They are thoroughly dismantling global security protocols, but they cannot see through a black plastic casing.
They invest hundreds of millions of dollars based entirely on the aesthetic of genius. The valuation skyrockets. The narrative is flawless. The mechanics are collapsing. Inside the laboratory, the Edison machines are self-destructing. The centrifuge inside the box requires perfect balance to separate plasma from red blood cells. The robotic arms are misaligned. When the machine activates, the glass vials shatter. Centrifugal force sprays human blood across the internal circuitry. The temperature inside the casing spikes, causing the biochemical reagents to degrade. The machine cannot regulate its own thermal output. The Edison is not analyzing blood, it is cooking it. The error rates are astronomical. Syphilis tests return false positives. Prostate cancer markers return false negatives. The data is entirely random. The physics cannot be negotiated. The biological reality of a compromised finger prick sample cannot be patched with a software update. But the investors are demanding commercial rollout. The Walgreens partnership is signed. Safeway invests $350 million to build wellness centers in their supermarkets. The pressure is no longer contained within the walls of a research facility. Real patient blood is arriving every morning. The dominoes are in motion. A system built on absolute deception cannot simply halt operations. It must escalate the lie to survive. The engineers attempt to rewrite the error codes. They attempt to adjust the robotic pipette calibration. Nothing works. The fundamental architecture of the Edison is a scientific impossibility. You cannot extract 200 diagnostic metrics from a volume of liquid smaller than a raindrop. When the machine fails to produce usable metrics, the protocol shifts from engineering to outright fabrication. The engineers are isolated. Compartmentalization is enforced. Teams are forbidden from communicating with each other. The marketing department claims the machine is flawless. The engineering department is manually cleaning shattered glass and coagulated blood from the rotors. The cognitive dissonance within the building becomes toxic. Security cameras monitor the hallways. Non-disclosure agreements are weaponized as instruments of terror. The narrative must be protected at the cost of biological reality. The system is no longer trying to solve a medical problem.
It is trying to survive the next board meeting. The valuation hits $9 billion. The cover of Forbes magazine features the black turtleneck. The net worth on paper is $4.5 billion. The physical reality in the laboratory is zero. The disconnect between the financial valuation and the physical truth creates a vacuum that requires constant feeding. They cannot back down. The Walgreens clinics are opening. Patients are walking in expecting the revolution. They present their fingers, the blood is drawn, the vials are shipped, and the Edison machines fail again. The lie has outgrown the creator. It is now a corporate mandate. The board meetings are masterclasses in psychological subversion. Holmes does not present clinical trial data. She presents emotional anecdotes about soldiers in Afghanistan needing portable blood testing. General Mattis is captivated by the vision of saving lives on the battlefield. He does not request the calibration reports of the spectrometers. Henry Kissinger is mesmerized by the charisma. He does not ask to see the coefficient of variation for the lipid panels. The greatest strategic minds of the 20th century are completely neutralized by a carefully curated startup persona. They are defending the company against any external scrutiny. They have become the shield for a medical catastrophe. The illusion is maintained through sheer audacity. Visitors to the Palo Alto headquarters are shown a pristine laboratory space. It is a stage set. The real testing happens downstairs in a restricted area nicknamed Normandy.
Down there, the Edison machines are failing at a rate that threatens to expose the entire operation.
The thermal regulatory systems cannot handle the heat generated by the continuous operation. Components melt. The robotic pipettes meant to handle microliters of fluid are too clumsy. They drop the nanotainers. They cross-contaminate the samples. The blood of one patient mixes with the blood of another. The results are not just inaccurate. They are biologically hazardous. If a doctor makes a clinical decision based on an Edison test, the patient could be subjected to unnecessary surgery or denied life-saving medication. The stakes are no longer financial. They are mortal. Yet the expansion continues. The venture capital keeps flowing. The fraud is self-sustaining as long as nobody opens the black box.
But the volume of incoming blood samples from the Arizona Walgreens clinics is overwhelming the capacity of the few functioning prototypes. The physical limitations of the hardware are colliding with the astronomical demands of the business model. A breaking point is mathematically inevitable. The company must process the tests to generate revenue and maintain the facade. If the Edison cannot do it, they have to find another way. They have to cheat the physical world. This is the moment the deception shifts from structural incompetence to active criminal conspiracy. The laboratory technicians are given a new directive, a directive that violates every fundamental principle of medical pathology. The domino has fallen. The chain reaction cannot be stopped. They must bypass their own technology to deliver the promised results. The solution is an engineering abomination. They decide to secretly purchase commercially available blood analyzers, massive traditional machines manufactured by Siemens.
the Advia 1800. These machines are designed to process large vials of venous blood, not the microscopic droplets contained in a Theranos nanotainer. The volume is simply insufficient for the Siemens probes to detect. So the engineers are ordered to alter the physical properties of the patient's samples. They introduce saline solution. They dilute the blood. They dilute it by a factor of 2, then a factor of 5, sometimes a factor of 10. The concentration of the biomarkers plummets below the detection threshold of the commercial machines. The data generated from these diluted samples is statistically worthless. It is noise.
Yet this noise is packaged into official medical reports and transmitted back to the patients.
The fraud is now fully operational and completely hidden behind a wall of corporate secrecy and military-grade legal intimidation. The Normandy laboratory is a fortress within a fortress. Keycard access is restricted. Biometric scanners lock the heavy steel doors. Inside the climate-controlled room sit the Siemens ADVIE 1800 analyzers. They are massive gray boxes weighing hundreds of pounds. They are the antithesis of the portable Edison. The engineers physically dismantle the outer casings of the Siemens machines. They hack the internal software interface. They disable the fluid detection sensors. The sensors are specifically designed to flag insufficient blood volumes. The Theranos technicians bypass these critical safety protocols. They must manipulate the biological matter to fit the mechanical constraints. They use micropipettes to manually transfer 10 microliters of plasma from the nanotainer into a custom dilution cup. They add 90 microliters of saline solution. This creates a 1 to 10 dilution ratio. The dilution fundamentally alters the viscosity and refractive index of the fluid. The Siemens machine uses photometric light scattering technology to measure analyte concentrations. The diluted fluid bends the light rays incorrectly. The internal algorithms miscalculate the absorbance values. The output is biological garbage. The data is transferred to the secure Theranos servers. It is repackaged with the corporate logo. It is transmitted directly to the Walgreens clinics. The illusion of a medical breakthrough is sustained entirely by a hacked commercial analyzer and cheap saline solution. The psychological weight of this daily deception falls squarely on the laboratory technicians. Tyler Schultz enters the Normandy lab as a new hire. He is 24 years old. He has a degree in biology from Stanford. He is the grandson of board member George Schultz. He expects to witness a technological marvel. He instead finds a triage center for shattered glass and falsified diagnostic data. Erica Chung joins the team shortly after. She is a newly graduated laboratory scientist. Her specific job is quality control. The QC protocol is a standard regulatory requirement across the global medical industry. You run a sample with a known concentration of a specific biomarker. You compare the machine output to the known baseline value. If the output falls outside a specific standard deviation, the machine must be recalibrated. The Edison machines fail the QC checks daily.
The variance is statistically staggering.
A known sample of vitamin D returns a value 50% lower than the physical reality. A known sample of testosterone returns a value double the established baseline. Chung flags the errors in the system logs. The data invalidates the entire testing run. The protocol dictates that patient results cannot be released under these conditions. But the Walgreens contract demands high-volume processing. The corporate officers intervene directly. They invent a new statistical methodology to hide the hardware failures. They call it outlier deletion. When the Edison produces a correct QC result, they keep it. When the Edison produces an erratic QC result, they delete the data point. The technicians physically drag the data files into the digital trash bin. They write a script in an Excel spreadsheet. The macro automatically highlights data points falling outside 2 standard deviations. The technicians manually hit the delete key. They run the macro again. The curve artificially smooths out. The coefficient of variation drops from 40% to an FDA-compliant 8%. The fake report is printed. It is signed by the laboratory director. The laboratory director is a dermatologist who rarely visits the facility. He does not check the raw data files. He signs the smoothed graphs to maintain legal compliance. This is a federal crime. It is a severe violation of the Clinical Laboratory Improvement Amendments. They force the mathematics to match the marketing. This is not science. This is systematic data laundering. Schultz watches the deletion process happen in real time. He runs the raw statistics himself. He calculates the actual reliability of the Edison syphilis test. It is exactly 65%. Flipping a coin offers a 50% accuracy rate. The $9 billion Edison is only marginally better than random chance. Patients are receiving positive HIV results when they are negative. Patients are receiving normal potassium levels when they are in critical physiological condition. The internal chat channels are heavily monitored. IT administrators read every internal email. The corporate culture shifts rapidly from innovation to severe paranoia. Employees are explicitly forbidden from adding each other on LinkedIn. The departmental silos are reinforced. The hematology team cannot speak to the immunoassay team. If you ask a technical question about the QC data, you are immediately called into an unlit conference room. You are interrogated by human resources. You are told you are not a team player. You are terminated. The psychological pressure cooker creates a massive turnover rate. But the departed employees cannot speak. They are bound by ironclad non-disclosure agreements. Enter David Boies. He is one of the most feared corporate litigators in the United States. He previously defended the federal government against Microsoft. He constructed a legal perimeter around the deception. The NDAs are weaponized as instruments of absolute terror. When an employee resigns, they are actively followed by private investigators. Men sit in parked cars outside their apartment complexes. Former employees find their emails hacked. They find their internet search histories monitored. When Schultz decides to report the data manipulation to the state regulators, the legal machine targets him directly. Boies sends a team of aggressive litigators to his grandfather's house. They place a legal document on the dining room table. It is an affidavit admitting to the theft of trade secrets. They demand Schultz sign it immediately. If he refuses, they threaten to sue his family into total bankruptcy. They threaten to drag him through decades of crushing litigation. The legal fees alone would destroy his financial future. George Schultz sides with the machine. The former Secretary of State believes the black turtleneck over his own grandson. The psychological distortion field is absolute. The legal threats are designed to break the human spirit before the truth can escape. Shung leaves the company. She is terrified. She sleeps with a burner phone under her pillow. She believes she's being tracked by corporate operatives. The system is operating exactly as designed. It uses the threat of total financial annihilation to protect a catastrophic mechanical failure. Fall 2015. A reporter in New York receives an encrypted file. John Carreyrou sits at a desk at the Wall Street Journal. He reads the raw data. He sees the outlier deletion macros. He examines the hacked Siemens Advia 1800 protocols. He contacts former employees. He calls Tyler Schultz. He calls Erica Chung. They speak off the record. They use burner phones. They break the ironclad non-disclosure agreements. The legal machine immediately activates. David Boies arrives at the Wall Street Journal headquarters in Manhattan. He brings a team of senior corporate attorneys. They place massive legal binders on the polished mahogany conference table. They threaten to obliterate the newspaper with catastrophic defamation lawsuits. They claim proprietary trade secrets are being stolen by disgruntled junior employees.
They use the $9 billion valuation as a weapon of sheer intimidation. They demand the story be killed. The lawyers argue that the proprietary algorithms are too advanced for standard regulatory oversight. They argue that traditional medical metrics cannot be applied to disruptive technological innovation. This is the ultimate defense mechanism of the tech industry, claiming that the rules of physics and biology simply do not apply to their specific brand of genius. But the reporter has the raw data. He has the internal emails showing the manual deletion of the failed test results. Carreyrou ignores the binders. He ignores the legal threats. He cross-references the specific medical billing codes. He checks the federal proficiency testing records. He verifies the absolute physical impossibility of the Edison diagnostic device. He types the final sentence. He hits publish. October 2015. The Wall Street Journal article goes live on the internet. The Silicon Valley reality distortion field shatters instantly. The carefully constructed narrative collapses under the crushing weight of basic journalistic fact-checking. The federal government activates. Inspectors from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services descend on the primary laboratory in Newark, California. They do not knock. They bypass the Public Relations Department. They bypass the executive suites. They walk directly into the Normandy restricted zone. They demand the physical quality control logs. They demand the raw calibration data. They freeze the internal server access. They physically inspect the proprietary Edison machines. The Food and Drug Administration arrives simultaneously. They classify the microscopic nanotainer as an unapproved, uncleared medical device. The federal inspectors aggressively audit the entire testing menu. The company publicly claimed the Edison hardware could independently run 250 distinct medical tests. The federal audit reveals the unvarnished physical truth. The $9 billion Edison machine is only running 12 tests. Exactly 12. The remaining 238 diagnostic tests are being run on commercial machines hidden behind locked doors. The commercial machines are running heavily diluted human blood. The entire commercial operation is an active biological hazard. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services issues a blistering 121-page official regulatory report. They state the laboratory poses immediate jeopardy to patient health and safety. They formally ban Elizabeth Holmes from owning or operating a medical diagnostic laboratory for a period of 2 years. The corporate partners panic. Walgreens terminates the retail partnership immediately. They physically board up the wellness centers inside their pharmacies. Safeway quietly writes off their $350 million infrastructure investment. Partner capital evaporates overnight. The federal grand jury convenes in San Francisco. The Department of Justice drafts multiple criminal indictments for massive wire fraud and conspiracy. The venture capital investors slowly realize they own millions of shares in an empty black plastic box. Forbes magazine officially retracts the cover story. The net worth valuation is publicly recalculated. The $9 billion is entirely vaporized. The financial spreadsheets register the value at exactly 0. The prestigious board of directors quietly dissolves. Former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger exits the board. General James Mattis exits the board. George Shultz remains silent in his home. The most powerful political and military men in America quietly step away from the smoking wreckage of the medical fraud they legitimized.
Silicon Valley considers itself the absolute apex of human intelligence. The venture capitalists build complex algorithmic trading bots.
They engineer reusable orbital rockets. They code advanced artificial intelligence neural networks. Yet they were completely dismantled by a 19-year-old university dropout with 0 medical patents and 0 peer-reviewed clinical data. She did not deploy a sophisticated zero-day cyber exploit. She did not hack the global financial mainframe. She simply weaponized their own monumental arrogance against them. She gave them a compelling corporate story and a highly recognizable aesthetic. She artificially lowered her vocal register by 2 octaves. She wore a black turtleneck identical to the founder of Apple, and the smartest men in the world gladly handed her $9 billion without ever once asking to look inside the machine. The ultimate vulnerability of a massive capitalist system is not found in its source code. It is found in the ego of the men who built it. They wanted a medical visionary so desperately, they simply hallucinated one into existence.
Subscribe to Clarity Uncovered. Next week, we analyze an impenetrable bank vault designed to withstand a direct nuclear blast that was completely emptied using a modified vacuum cleaner. You do not want to miss this.